out this awesome view. We're gonna go up this cliff right here, and then we'll be able to see back this direction. So Marco and I have decided to embark on another adventure. We're doing a hike to a really awesome spot. Another one that I can't pronounce, but we're going uphill. And then when we get to the spot, we're gonna be on top of this incredible cliff, super sheer drop. And then in the background, you can see this really awesome lake, which is elevated above the water. It's a really cool illusion, kind of an illusion. The lake actually is higher than the water, of course, but in the photographs, it looks much higher.
After a quick trek up the hill, we were greeted with one of the most spectacular views that I've ever seen in my entire life. The pure sense of scale you get by standing atop these 1,000-foot cliffs high above the ocean is truly surreal. Marco and I decided to relax for a little bit, and then we decided to pull out our cameras and take some images. Here's what I shot. I went with this vertical frame because I wanted to include some of that really dramatic sky and some of that foreground framing the cliffs and the ocean. This is a single exposure, and you'll notice I went with the super short shutter speed because I wanted to capture a pretty crisp bird in the frame, and they were just flying all over the place. So I kept snapping images, and I finally got this one, which ended up being my favorite, with the bird almost directly in the middle of the image. This is a pretty tricky place to shoot. It's kind of tough to compose to get everything you want into the frame. And I wanted to compose this image in such a way that that central cliff was framed by the foreground. So I went with this one that kind of has that V shape in the middle that sort of mimics the cliff a little bit. I was really happy with the way this image came out, but this was not my favorite. So let me go ahead and show you my favorite image from this location. This is definitely my favorite image from this spot, and to be honest, this is my favorite image from the trip. This image to me really encapsulates the drama, the power, the scale of the Faroe Islands. This is the image that I had been searching for the last time I was here and just could not seem to get it. I was a little uncertain if this whole thing was going to stitch because I was doing about 7 vertical images, and then I was moving side by side, and I was also taking multiple time-lapse frames to get all those birds in the right position. So it was a little bit of a tricky image to get, but I'm really happy with the final outcome. I love that warm glow on the cliff matched with the blues in the water and the kind of darker blues in the storm clouds. I took this image right before it started raining, so I was definitely happy I was able to get this one.
So we got the shots that we were looking for.
We did.
We got the awesome light.
It was amazing.
And now it is raining.
Yeah,
again.
it's raining. It never happens. There's 363 days of sun in the Faroe Islands per year.
Pretty much.
But today is raining.
Faroe Islands is actually one of the driest places in the world. You might not think that from seeing the pictures.
Yeah,
very dry.
People really have to seek for those rainy days.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Every single time a photographer comes into town, the rain starts, and then as soon as they leave, the rain stops
amazing,
again.
Amazing one.
It's just one of those interesting kind of.
So unique.
Yeah.
Awesome spot.
And when we first got here, there was no light. There was no light at all. Pretty overcast.
Really flat.
And then you noticed
a light beam over there at the horizon. We waited a bit. We kept waiting and waiting, but finally we got lucky.
As with most things, waiting paid off. We got some incredible light on this cliff, and the birds were just flying around everywhere. And the thing is, we were actually shooting all of our shots handheld. And you might be wondering, well, you're shooting a sea cliff, you have water in the scene. Might you want to do a long exposure? Usually, but in this case, we're so high up on these cliffs, and the water isn't really a strong element in the composition. Yeah. If anything, these birds flying around are a way more interesting element to focus on than the water. So that's why
they give more kind of action to the shot because they're flying around and there are really many birds down here.
now we are deciding whether or not to head to those sea stacks out in the distance, or perhaps go to the famous waterfall. What is it called again? How do you pronounce it?
It's Gazadalur.
Gazadalur.
Yeah.
We're going to do Gazadalur. Maybe. Or the sea stacks. What are the sea stacks called?
We should pick some place with easier name.
I know.
Like
Can we start calling it our own things?
you should.
Oh, and this bird wants to attack Marco.
And I just
I'll
missed the
protect
shot.
you, Marco.
Thank you.
I'm going to protect you from the evil Faroe Island bird.
Thank you.
So, after shooting that really awesome sheer cliff with all the birds, we decided to make it to another sheer cliff with more birds. But this time, we found an awesome waterfall that is right in the foreground of the shot. And then you've got this incredible sort of pyramid, jagged sea stack in the background that was catching all of this light. And all these birds were just flying around right next to the camera.
So admittedly, I actually struggled a little bit with composing this scene and getting an image that I was really happy with. So here's the photograph, and this is a 16mm frame on the Nikon D850. And I went with a shorter shutter speed because I wanted to show a bird flying through the frame, and this one was in a perfect spot. Now, I have a few problems with this image. The main reason we came here, the main reason this spot is so gorgeous, is because of the waterfall pouring down from the lake into the ocean and that beautiful pyramid sea stack in the background. In this composition, they are so minimal. They just don't hold as much power as they do when you're standing there. So this wide-angle shot, while it does show the conditions really well, just for me didn't really work to best represent the landscape. Let me show you the next image that I shot. Alright, so here's my second attempt at photographing this location. This time I switched to 35mm for my frame. Now I'm still going with the shorter shutter speed here. I liked some of the texture in the water. I love that little bit of mist coming out of the whitewash, and I felt like the shorter shutter speed better represented this experience, whereas I tried a few longer exposures and I just, to be honest, wasn't a fan of the look. This is actually a single exposure, so zooming in, I had a lot less dynamic range to have to deal with, and I love the light on the cliffs, and this image just, in my opinion, better represents the landscape than the previous. You can see those beautiful giant cliffs in the background. The pyramid sea stack is showcased really well in this composition, and of course you get a closer look at the waterfall pouring into the ocean. Admittedly, this is not the most creative composition I've ever come up with. It's just a very simple shot showing the cliffs, the waterfall, and the sea stack. But I do like the way it came out, and I love the conditions that we were given for this shot.
It was just spectacular earlier, so we shot as much as possible, a bunch of video, a bunch of photos, and now I think we're gonna make our way up that way and shoot one more cliff before sunset.
I was definitely pretty exhausted by this point, and we were power walking up the hill. We were treated with the most spectacular sunset I saw the entire trip, and honestly, one of the most spectacular sunsets that I've seen the entire year. I just love the conditions we were given here with that beautiful light backlighting all these little mossy patches, and seeing some of the sheep in the background was definitely a nice treat. And actually, if I zoom in here, you can see some people hiking along the cliff, which gives you a pretty good sense of scale here of just how massive these sea cliffs are. I ended up snapping this quick and simple frame. I did about 3 different exposures because I was facing into the sunlight and I needed a little bit more of that dynamic range for the highlights and the shadows. So after shooting this image, I was really happy with what I had captured for sunset. This is summertime in the Faroe Islands, so sunsets last for a long time. I decided to hike up the hill a little bit further, kind of towards the top of the hill. Now, I've never seen images from up here, so I have no idea. If you're not sure what something looks like, just go walk. That's the best advice I can give. There's only so much you can use Google Earth for. Really, the best way to capture unique perspectives and find your own compositions, just go for a walk. In this case, this is the photograph I shot from the top of the hill, and I don't mind the way it looks. I think it's a nice photograph for the most part. It's definitely not my favorite from this area though. I like the textures and some of the shapes here. I also like what's happening with the sun and the clouds. I don't feel like the cliffs are quite as dramatic. I don't feel like I get that sense of power and that sense of scale like I did in the previous photograph. So after shooting this image, I decided to relax for a bit and set up a time lapse for the rest of sunset. I honestly just couldn't have asked for a better day shooting landscapes out here in the Faroe Islands. This was a perfect end to the trip, and honestly it was just a lot of fun to have my friend Marco Grazi there, share some laughs, and share the experience. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment if you have any. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I'll be releasing a bunch of new videos in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.